of the most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Racehour podcast, kindly sponsored by Betfred in association with Gambling.com. The eagle-eyed amongst you will already have caught that I am not in fact Tom Lee, who's currently engaged in matters of an equine nature in Devonshire, but I am Darren Hughes, filling in the host seat this week. So with that major disappointment out of the way, I'm very pleased to be joined by esteemed racing broadcaster and all-round good judge, Tanya Stevenson. How are you, Tanya?
Yeah, really looking forward to this weekend's action. I've seen some great action at the weekend just gone, and a couple of good races at Clonmel through the week as well. So fingers tightly crossed, more for the notebook this weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. In fairness to the season, it's just kind of starting to get into gear now. We've seen a couple of good horses out, more to come in the next week or two, and we've had a couple of real slobber knockers of races, so that's obviously good to see. Next up is Mr. Get Your Tips Out himself, Joe Norris. It's a good weekend's racing, Joe. Are you confident of a few winners?
Yep, fingers crossed. We had a couple last weekend, so hopefully we can build on that. I'm just hoping, all the racing goes ahead. There's a lot of rain about, and I think it's going to be quite testing conditions, especially at Aintree.
Yeah, we were just looking at the weather forecast right before the podcast, and doesn't make for promising reading, but we keep the old fingers crossed that we can get away with it. And last, but most certainly not least, the Racehour's very own warden of the North, Lee Hayes. Are you making the trip to Aintree this weekend, Lee?
I'm not fresh from a good weekend. I say fresh, not very fresh from a good weekend in Fairyhouse, actually, with the Aberdeen and Leeds boys. So no racing for me this weekend other than watching it on the TV.
Very good, yeah. Often the best place to watch racing, particularly in inclement weather conditions. We'll kick on with the podcast anyway, and we'll go to the south first of all. To begin, we'll start at the 115 in Sandown. It's the Pertemps Network handicap hurdle over 2 miles, 7.5 furlongs. Competitive enough field here. West of the Bridge, Dubrovnik Harry and Aintree II dominate the market, but there's no reason to say any of these 12 or any of these 10 couldn't win the race. Joe Norris, can you kick off the podcast with a winner, please?
No pressure. Well, this race, I think, the majority of the field come in with something to prove. Now, I want to take a chance on the Nichols horse, Henry II. Now, I know things haven't worked out for him lately. His sole start last season, they tried to go chasing. He jumped absolutely shockingly that day. But I thought he actually shaped quite well on return back over hurdles, obviously over shorter. He was behind Act of Authority. Just sort of looked like he got a bit outpaced to me and then kept on well. He does need to jump better. He hesitates quite a lot when he's going into his flight, so I'd like to see him jump better. But he definitely stayed on well that day. He's obviously going up in trip here for the first time to near 3 miles, which I actually think will suit. He's got a big knee action, so I think if the ground comes up quite testing, that's going to help him. He's been dropped £2 since last time. I remember when he won a novice hurdle at this track a couple of years ago. He's really impressive. I mean, this horse has finished, behind the likes of Chianti Classico. He's still lightly raced. It's only his third start in a handicap over hurdles. So I think if this trip can bring out some improvement, I think he's a good bet in this at sort of 5-1, I think is in the betting.
Yeah, Aintree II is standout 5-1 with our sponsors Betfred paying 3 places. On this race, a compelling case made there for the horse for Paul Nicholls' charge by Joe Norris. Tanya Stevenson, how did you see this one playing out?
Yeah, as Joe said, everything's got a point to prove here. Dubrovnik Harry's only ever won once. That would worry me. West of the Bridge has had 53 races now, so he's fully exposed. His Sandown record isn't too bad, 6-7-1-1. But he's 11 years old. Henry II, I watched that run a couple of times, that latest run. He certainly needed it and he didn't run too badly. Up for Parole is a place specialist. This is a Pertemps qualifier, so they're obviously getting out to qualify, but they're racing to put the thinking caps on to think where next. I have been looking through the stats, and on Tingle Creek Day, over the last recent seasons, Gary Moore's had 14 runners. He's had 6 winners from his last 14 runners on this day. So I was really doing cartwheels when Authorised Art declared, and a couple of others later on, handicap-wise. And now Authorised Art, I grant you, is a chaser. Used to be trained by William Mullins, and only the last couple of runs it's been with Gary Moore. Really caught the eye at Kempton when in a listed hurdle, I think it was, behind Rubord and Kievar. Now, we saw how well Kievar ran in the fighting fifth. And then, understandably, with all its back form in the Galway Plate and the Kerry National last year, no surprise to see Authorised Art have a crack at the Grand Sefton. Didn't like it. Didn't like the national fences. You can forgive anyone for that. And Gary, quite rightly, Gary and Josh Moore coming down this route again with the hurdling. Got a lot of weight to carry. Freddie Mitchell's going to take 5 out of the saddle. It's a race where you can't say, well, there's bits and pieces of form for everyone. He will handle the ground. Anything can happen. Lots and lots of rain can come. He can handle anything. He probably wants a little bit further. And just at the prices, I thought it'd be a little bit of value, Authorised Art. Because if you'd just cracked away and scratched out that Grand Sefton run, he'd have come in here with a much shorter price.
Yeah, fair argument made. All right, we can always forgive one bad run, and as you say, it was over those unique Grand National fences. So compelling case made there for Authorised Art by Tanya Stevenson. We move on now to the 150. It's the Henry VIII Novices Chase over 1 mile 7.5 furlongs. Lead to Suit, I think I'm going to go with that pronunciation, leads British hopes with this year's Arkle at this early stage. Is evens a good price for him to maintain that reputation, Lee Hayes?
I don't think so, no. We've already said it's going to be testing ground. I think it's had 6 runs on soft or heavy, placed 3 times, won none. Clearly this racing post Novices Chase at Leopardstown at Christmas now gone. I think that this is the only Grade 1 for 2 mile novices before the Arkle at the DRF. So that's why I think Gordon's bringing a 2 of his over. I think one of them 2 will win. Both very impressive last time out. Touch Me Not jumped amazingly well at Punchestown. And Down Memory Lane was very, very impressive. Slight question mark on Down Memory Lane on testing ground. It has won on soft, but I know it ran really badly at the DRF, didn't it, on heavy. But I think there were some issues there. So I'm going to forgive that. So I like Touch Me Not. Gordon did say he was worried about the ground last time, and whilst that was soft, I think Timeform's official going was good to soft. So on the ground, I'm going to go Down Memory Lane to win at 11-4. Touch Me Not to come second, 1-2 for Gordon for me.
Gordon Elliott forecast the even money favourite not to be cited according to Lee Hayes. Joe Norris, do you see the race going the same way?
No, I don't actually. I do think Load of Sode will win this. Now, you know, he's been pretty faultless since going chasing, bar that mistake he made at Stratford, which I think he learned from. I was really impressed at Cheltenham, the way he went through that race. Just touched on the ground. Like he did finish second in the Betfair Hurdle on heavy, obviously in the county as well, where he chased home Absurd. That was obviously testing as well. I think he'd be all right on the ground. It depends how testing it is, I think, but I wouldn't let that put me off. You know, I agree with Lee in that I do think it's more competitive. You know, Evans is quite skinny, but I thought he was impressive at Cheltenham. He's got a higher cruising speed. I think, you know, these fences are going to suit him. They come up quick. If he gets into a nice rhythm, I think he'll put a lot of pressure on the other horses in this. Obviously, Down Memory Lane was a big drifter on Chase debut at Navan and won impressively. I think he's definitely a danger. So that's who I'd put forward as the threat to him, I think.
Even money favourite will do for Joe Norris, with obviously the threat of Down Memory Lane on the horizon. We will move on now to the 225, a little bit more competitive. It's the Betfair Place Different handicap hurdle. 2 mile handicap hurdle here, tricky puzzle to solve, and unfortunately the aforementioned Tom Lee is not present to advise us on the chances of Yard Flag Bearer and Nemean Lion, so instead Tanya Stevenson's going to give us the winner.
Yeah, and I'll speak for Tom. Nemean Lion will have a massive, massive chance. He knows how to lug massive weights, as seen in the Lanzarote hurdle when he carried 11-11 and was picked up by JJ Riley, and was third was Impostoir, I think it was. So it's a quality performer, and then went on to win the Grade 2 Elite. I don't know what happened in the Champion where they went off stupid pace, Nemean Lion. Easy for me to say. Still got beat 17 lengths. I didn't deserve to get beat 17. Ran as if it was going to be beaten a lot further, but that's a phenomenal. So he's dangerous. He's the yardstick. You could certainly get confidence in that. We're disappointed to tell everyone that Cabral de Mathan is now a non-runner in the race due to the ground. So keep an eye out. There's only 8 stand as we chat. So very, very careful on your each-way selections, because there's another highly touted individual in the race, potentially, that might not run, in the fact that Willmount, who oozes all the class you can imagine from about a year ago, when was just waltzed home at Newbury. For Nicky Henderson, and then was given 12-1 quotes or around about for the Supreme. We haven't really seen since. It was pulled up on its next run in the Cello, and obviously that's when Nicky was having his bad run. So Willmount, certainly a big danger in that race. Altabelli, I don't think acts on heavy. He was really down tools in the Betfair hurdle after showing so many promises. He's got lots of fans in the race. I'm once again going to Gary Moore. He's got 2 in the race, once again because of his record. He's won the race 3 times. A horrific race this is for favourites over the recent years. Spirit Danu won the race last year, and Royal Way finished a good 3rd at the meeting on Fridays in a novice hurdle. Then went on to be beaten 14 lengths by a horse called Sergino in a young juvenile hurdle, only beaten 14 lengths, and then Royal Way then started to progress. His run at Cheltenham, I think everything happened too fast for him last time out in the Great Wood. He wasn't ready for a Great Wood. He wasn't ready for a Great Wood on really quick going. And when you see the depth of the race, I can forgive him that run. He comes into this race, he's out of the handicap. Freddie Mitchell again on board Royal Way. He's £1 out of the handicap. He will love the ground, I think, Royal Way. Spirit Danu deposed, unseated his rider last time out. It could be a Gary Moore forecast. It could well, but I'm going to go with Royal Way in the race because of his potential, and the Gary Moore stable got a great record, and how much weight he hasn't got to carry. I think he's got plenty of manoeuvrability on that mark he's currently on, Royal Way, so I'll stick with that one, and wouldn't be surprised if Gary had the forecast.
Gary Moore forecast, but Royal Way to carry a featherweight to victory here for Tanya Stevenson. Interesting selection there. Lee Hayes, how did you see this playing out?
Exactly the same. I think I've been copying Tanya's notes, actually. Yeah, I was pleased to hear that stat about Gary Moore at the Tingle Creek meeting. But yeah, it's Royal Way for me as well. I know this podcast legend, Stephen Cass, likes this horse. I think he mentioned it. It beat this Hampsian that hosed up at Cheltenham. It definitely wants soft ground. Every comment you read says it wants soft ground. Whether it wants it this testing, we'll find out on Saturday. But I think at 14-1 before Cabral de Mathan came out, it's going to be a bit short now. I think with Freddie Mitchell, he had 2 big Saturday winners last Saturday. A good £5 coming off there. 2 out of the last 3 winners have been 4-year-olds of this race, I think. So, and what I love about this horse, it's owned by an ex-stand-up comedian called Keith Loads. So if Keith loads up on this horse, I'm going to follow it, and I won't be surprised on that Tanya Stevenson, Gary Moore forecast as well.
You'll put the man out of a job at one-liners like that, Lee. Good man. Royal Way for Tanya and for Lee Hayes. We will move on now to the flagship race of the day. I think it's fair to say the Tingle Creek over 1 mile, 7.5 furlongs. The judges all seem to think 4-7 is a good price about John Vaughan here as he bids to keep his Queen Mother Champion Chase hopes on track. Are you of the same opinion, Joe Norris?
I'm of the opinion, to be honest, that I just wouldn't have a bet in this race. Now, I think John Bond will win it. Obviously, he won it last year, beat Edwardstone. And then, you're looking at the dangers then. Like, Quilixios, I think, is a bit overrated on that form last time where he beat Marine Nationale. I don't think Marine Nationale's finishing its races with any conviction, so I wouldn't read too much into that. I actually think Edwardstone probably is the bet to finish second. I think he'll probably reverse that form with Boot Hill. I thought he ran perfectly fine at Cheltenham. He still looks like he sort of retains all his enthusiasm. And I think Edwardstone will run well here, but I just can't see how John Bond doesn't win this. But for me, I just wouldn't have a bet in this sort of race.
Watch and brief for Joe Norris. Lee Hayes, are you of the same opinion?
Yeah, I think so in terms of not having a bet at that price. I mean, it looks bulletproof, doesn't it, John Bond? 4 out of 4 at the course, 3 out of 3 course and distance. It's won on soft ground. It's even won on heavy ground. I you can't really pick any holes in it. Henderson's in cracking form. If I was going to have a bet in this, and I'd probably go for a forecast or an each way bet. I think the one I'd chuck in would be JPR 1 for a forecast or each way. Still seems pretty unexposed over fence. It's only had 6 chase starts as a 7-year-old. It's won 3 times on soft or heavy, which it's clearly going to be tomorrow. Last time out was first run after a wind up and first run with a tongue tie. So can that bring out some improvement second time round? So yeah, trainer's in good form at 14-1 currently. I think I'd go each way on that. I'll do a forecast with John 1.
Each way JPR 1 for Lee Hayes. Yeah, that's not a bad argument whatsoever. Closing out at Sandown, we have the London National, the marathon trip, over 3 miles, 4.5 furlongs. Tommy Bowbackers will be hoping the railway fences should be easier to track than the Cheltenham cross-country course, but this is very competitive. Tanya Stevenson, you were looking forward to this race in the pre-pod chat?
Yeah, I certainly am looking forward to this. We've got in theory, some great staying races to look out for at the weekend. We've got the Beaches. We've got the Welsh Grand National Trial and then the Borders National on Sunday at Kelso. So you get the best of all the staying handicap chasers. You mentioned Tommy Bow. He's brilliant, isn't he? He's 10 from 27 over fences. There was that little bit of hiccup in the cross-country at Cheltenham. He was certainly going to be vying for a chance of at least a place, if not winning that contest. But now we come to the big boys. We run in a London National. He's 4 from 11 over 3 miles, 3 furlongs. I worry about the fact that he has never won in December, January or February. He's only run at Sandown's been over hurdles rather than fences, and this is a different kind of an examination. 24 fences to jump. Mr. Vango won't wait for him. He's where he was able to dictate at Cheltenham over the cross-country, and Mr. Vango will go off, and Nico de Boinville's going to have a whale of a time out in front. Not that with the ground possibly going to be soft or a little bit of heavy places for the chase course. But you can imagine Mr. Vango with his form in behind Corbett's Cross and Embassy Gardens, that really stands up well. He's won a Devon National. Tommy Bow has been to every national. He hasn't done the London National yet, but I just worry him because I think there's he's taking on some big boys here. Montgomery shows the utmost of promise. I just worry whether Montgomery will truly stay at Mr. Vango pace. He shows the utmost potential. Obviously, Venetia's got a 38% strike rate at this moment. 12 months ago, I backed Broken Halo for this race, so I was travelling well. Probably wouldn't have won, but 2 out, crumbled on landing. He was going well enough. He then I don't know whether he lost his confidence because he subsequently ran in the Grand Military and he fell in that, and then he came second in the Royal Artillery. But thank goodness he won at Taunton over a long distance. I think Paul Nicholls has won this 5 times. You've got to respect him. However, I was covering lots and lots of racing really closely yesterday, and Neil Mulholland, up until yesterday, couldn't buy a winner. He was 0 from something like 29, and then 2 winners yesterday, and he has Contwall Legend in the race. So if you want a little bit of fun, it's going to be a little bit hairy, but Contwall Legend certainly stays. He's 10. He last won in March 2023. Neil Mulholland's won this twice, but he is going to be a good each way price. Mr. Vango probably go out and lead, and every chance of making all. His form is so solid. But if you want a good each way run, Contwall Legend should go round beautifully. The yard's coming back in form at the right time. Brendan Powell's on board. Nice weight. So Contwall Legend each way with fully expectation. Mr. Vango just making all in this and the crowd raising the roof. But just want to go for a left field selection.
Very good, yeah. He's a sight to behold when he's in full flow, Mr. Vango. But Conquell Legend, a few little pointers there suggesting that maybe the 18-1 with Betfred is too big of a price. Every chance that'll be bigger in the morning. And our sponsors, Betfred, are paying 4 places on this race. We will leave Sandown now and head to Aintree. For the 132 is the Aintree Boyle Sports Handicap Chase over 2.5 miles. Springwell Bay has taken well to fences. He's the 3-1 favourite to take home this £20,000 prize, but he won't have it all his own way. Joe Norris, give us the winner.
Yeah, so I actually napped Springwell Bay at Cheltenham. I am going to keep the faith with him here. Now, he was impressive on debut over fences at Chepstow. I don't think he did a lot wrong last time. Looking at the trip in hindsight, did he sort of see it out as strong as you would hope? Probably not. So they're coming back in trip here. I think the key as well is going to get softer ground, which I think he'll appreciate. I definitely think he's got to have more to come over fences. He's obviously carrying a big weight. He's got 12 stone. But I do think he's a class act in here. I actually, I'm not telling you much here because I think the betting's got this pretty spot on. Like Richmond Lake does look the danger. He obviously brings the King Turgeon form to the table, finishing fourth in the Grand Sefton. He's a lot more exposed, but he's a good horse and he's off his last winning mark. So I think he's the threat. But looking down the field, I didn't think there was that much strength in depth here. Like the only other one I sort of looked at as a threat was Grandad's Cottage because it can go well fresh. But you're looking at around 3-1 for Springwell Bay back in trip on softer ground. I think is a good bet.
The front of the market to dominate here, according to Joe Norris. Tanya, did you see it the same way?
Yeah, I'm going to take Joe on with the danger. Richmond Lake. He won the race last year. He's one of only 3 finishers in really heavy ground, so should it deteriorate as it potentially could do over this 2.5 miles, I'll go with Darren Hughes and Richmond Lake. He was, he ran in the Great Yorkshire Chase. I think they were trying to see whether he stayed. He never really got into that contest. He did run well, though, in the Topham behind Arizona Cardinal, and then went over the big fences, as Joe said, again behind King Turgeon. I thought he closed in rather well, actually, in that. He's 6 from 14 on soft and heavy. He loves this time of the year. He's 4 from 7 in November and December. Brian loves riding him as well. 6 from 13. And as I said, he won the race last year. So I'll stick with Richmond Lake.
Richmond Lake for Tanya. We move on now to one of the spectacles of the National Hunt season. It's the second sighting we've had of the Grand National fences this year, or this season, I should say, and it promises to be a cracker. 75,000 of the King Sterling to the winner. And who will that be, Tanya, in the Beat Your Handicap chase?
I have been finding every way I could to try and see if I could get King Turgeon beat. I mean, I think there's in it is history. 11 6-year-olds have run in the race. None have won. 2 have been favourite, got beat. King Turgeon's a 6-year-old. I watched the Grand Sefton again, seeing if Gabriel was closing. To some respect he was, but Gabriel doesn't jump as well as King Turgeon. King Turgeon gains his ground with every jump he takes. He was spectacular at Chepstow, which all guided us into this contest. Obviously, there's a lot of front runners in the race. Chianti Classico, you see whether he'll take part in the race. It's such a good field. It has favoured the old-timers. Celebra Dallin, who was beaten a mile in this last year, could be brought back into the contest. You've got specialists. But the way he jumps, King Turgeon, Jack Tudor's aboard again. I don't think the distance is going to be a problem. I thought what they did was run him in the Grand Sefton thinking he'd take to the fences rather than worry about the distance of the Beecher. For one moment, he was entered in the Welsh Grand National trial, so I thought they were going to go Chepstow Welsh Grand National, but he's not in that. So he hasn't got a plan beyond this, like many of the others potentially have. So I'll stick with the youngsters still. I'll stick with King Turgeon to break that stat for 6-year-olds and be the first one in 12 to come on and win this race. He just needs to jump as he normally does, and he'll gain a distance at that trait. He's very good.
Yeah, if he takes these fences, it's probably hard enough to see him beat, I would say, King Turgeon. But 4-1 with our sponsors, Betfred, who are paying 4 places on this race. And now to round us out, the last of the ITV races here features a field of 12. It's the Boyle Sports Handicap Hurdle over 2.5 miles. 12 potential handicap lots, 11-2. The field tells a tale in and of itself, probably. Lee, guide us on, please.
Yeah, so I think Aintree's soft as of 4 o'clock last night with potentially 10 to 20 mils and more rain to come. So that's going to end up testing, isn't it? Soft, heavy, probably. Just want to give a quick shout to the Lord Maid. It won at Clonmel for Josh Halley. The next 4 home have all won since, and it beat them by 8, 9 and 40 lengths. It then won a novice on ground that's probably too quick for its second on handicap debut. So it's probably suited to soft and a stamina test, which it will get here. Training form not great, but at 14-1, just give that a little shout. But my theme today, I think, is trainer 1-2. As I've had Gordon Elliott, I've had Gary Moore, and I'm going to go with Ollie Murphy on this one. So Pyramid Play loves the heavy ground. 3 wins out of 4 on heavy. It's sprung a 66-1 shock over course and distance. It's on a career high mark though, and it's been ignored by Sean Bowen. So I'm going to go for the other one, Tamar Bridge. It's won on soft. It's won twice out of 3 on heavy. It's won twice out of 2 goes in December. It's a course and distance win. Actually won this race in 2021, believe it or not. Then it pulled up on its next 3 starts, and then it had 698 days off. So obviously some kind of an issue there. It came back recently after that long layoff, and it came second on ground that would have been miles too quick for it. I think good to soft. Went right to the line, so obviously fit. Was backed in from 28s to 14s. All its wins have come on these sort of left-handed, flat, galloping type tracks. It is up £3 from its last run, and effectively 8, because it had a £5 claimer and a good £5 claimer. But it's still £3 below when it won this race in 2021. And because Bowen's chosen it, and because of all those reasons, Murphy's currently running at last 30 days at 30% strike rate in handicaps, which is very, very good. So at 7-1, I'm going to go to Tamar Bridge.
Tamar Bridge for Lee Hayes. Yeah, Ollie Murphy's Yard really have stepped up a gear or two in the last 2 weeks. It's been a sight to behold. And Tanya, your view on the race, please.
Just going to go with Bingo. Bingo is a course and distance winner from Boxing Day, was it last year? He's won 5 of 13. He's back down to his winning mark from that day last year. I thought he came into his race at Carlisle, he looking as though he needed his seasonal reappearance, which he hoped was the case. And he came into that last 3 fences. He's been bustled along by Charlotte Jones, and unfortunately took a few missteps after the second last, and Charlotte got unseated, but he was literally coming back into the race. I definitely think he would have placed. It's a tough course to have your seasonal debut at Carlisle. Ideal. Put it spot on to a course that he's already shown his best at. It'll be a fair old price. It might be value each way, Bingo. And Jimmy Moffat's does have a great record here at Aintree. Even over the bigger fences, he's got a good strike rate at the course. So I'll go for Bingo in this final race at Aintree.
Plus £63.50 to a £1 stake. I came down the same way as you when I was doing a bit of research in this race last night. That's at the Aintree course. Relatively rare non-Cartmel runner for Jimmy Moffat. And Charlotte Jones. That brings us to the end of this week's programme. I'm going to stick with you, Tanya, for your nap of the weekend, please.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not going to bug Joe. So I'm going to go with Richmond Lake. I'll give it to Brian Hughes and Richmond Lake, who won their race at Aintree the last year. I think they'll go in again. They could. I think they were thinking maybe of going for the Beechers, but they've stuck to the normal Marmite course. So I'll go for Richmond Lake.
Richmond Lake for Tanya Stevenson. Lee Hayes, your nap of the weekend, please.
I was very tempted with the Tanya Stevenson rubber stamp to go Royal Way, but I decided on Tamar Bridge, so I'm going to stick with Tamar Bridge as my nap.
Tamar Bridge for Lee Hayes. And Joe Norris, round out the programme for us, please, your nap.
Yeah, I'm going to go for King Turgeon in the Beecher. I agree with Tanya. I think, this horse just jumped so well. You look at the Grand Sefton, the form's already been franked with that. Frero Bamboo came out and won the rehearsal at Newcastle last weekend. So I think a £6 rise is definitely within range. And I think, around 4-1, he's a great bet.
Brilliant stuff. King Turgeon for Joe Norris. And with that, we will wrap up this week's show with thanks again to sponsors Betfred and Gambling.com. Dermot, Tony and Cass will be back next week. So until then, be lucky and please gamble responsibly.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounded Cordon Star into submission.